So, ecology. So, what is ecology? Ecology is the study of relationship between organisms and their environment and the balances between these relationships. So generally, ecology is one of the branches of biology that try to study living organisms, their environment, and how those organisms interact with the environment. So generally in the environment, we have two factors. We have abiotic factors and we have biotic factors. So those words in rates are the biotic factors, and those in blue, they are the abiotic factors. So what we are seeing in ecology, we are just trying to study how organisms are living in the environment, how one of the organisms interact with another, as well as the environment itself. So there is a strong relationship between environment and the organisms. Some environment supports the survival of some other organisms, while some environment do not support the survival of some particular organisms. So therefore, the survival of organisms in a particular environment is actually depend on the biotics and the abiotic factors. So in a simple way, when we are saying ecology, it means that all organisms, irrespective of the level of the organisms, whether it is microorganisms, whether it is higher animals or higher plants, they interact with one another as well as the environment itself. Like, for example, there are some environments that allow the survival of some particular animals because of the microorganisms that are present in that environment. So some organisms support the survival of another organisms. And if those organisms are not present in that environment, so it means that those other animals cannot survive at all in that particular environment. So that is why we need to understand that there is a relationship between the environment and the organisms that are living in that particular environment, and even between the organisms that interact with one another. And that is what we call ecology. So the person that study ecology is called ecologist. So the scientist that study ecology is called ecologist. And at the same time, what ecologist does in the environment first, what they do is to know the structure of the environment. They map the food wave of that particular environment. So as an ecologist that you want to study environment first, you go to the environment, study the structure first, that is the structure of the environment. What are the biotic factors in the environment? What are the abiotic factors? Do they actually support one another? You map the food wave. What is the complex or what are the feeding relationships between those organisms? You study that. So that is the structure. So generally living organisms or as ecologists, they always study the organisms. Sorry, they first study the structure of the environment. Then after they study the structure of the environment, they also study the processes like the control of the environment, the processes in the environment, which include like water cycle, carbon cycle. So as ecologists, you need to do that. And then second, what are the changes? What are the changes in the environment? As an ecologist, you study environments today. Then you also study it maybe in the next 5 years. That is what ecologist does. And the reason why you study changes is to see if there is maybe any change in a population of a particular organism. Do they grow off or they grow down? Maybe when you study them like 10 years difference, you check what are the species that are found 10 years and what are the species that are there currently. Are they the same species? If they are the same species, what about the population of the species? Does it increase in the last 10 years? Does it decrease? So that is why we need to understand all this. So ecology is trying to study how living organisms survive, how they interact with one another, and also how those organisms interact with the environment. Like, for example, a typical example of this ecology, look at the people in China, look at the population in China, and look at the population from Nigeria. The kinds of the environment they have is what actually supports their physical appearance. And the types of the environment we have is also what supports our physical appearance. So there is always a relationship between organisms and the environment that they are living. And to study that is what we call ecology. And as I said, ecology is always study the structure of the environment, they study the structure of the environment. One, they study the processes in the environment, the processes in the environment, such as water cycle, carbon cycle, and they also study changes. If there is any change in the environment, they also study that. So as ecologists, these are some of the things they study in the environment. So, and we have branches of ecology. This branch of ecology include animal ecology, plant ecology, insect ecology, and microbial ecology. So what is animal ecology? Animal ecology means the study of animal, their relationship, and the environment. So within an environment, you can have different population of animals. So as animal ecologists, you study what are the animals that are in that particular environment, how do they interact, and also all those animals, apart from their interactions, how do they also interact with the environment? And then we also have plant ecology. It means the study of plants, their interaction with the environment. And then we have insect ecology. And this insect ecology means the insects, how insects like mosquitoes, what are the kinds of the mosquitoes that are found in Zaria? What of those that are found in Kano? Are they the same species? If they are the same species, are they morphologically the same? What of the insects? Like, let's say mosquito, what are the mosquitoes that are found in Kenya, the mosquitoes that are found in Nigeria, and the mosquitoes that are found in Asia? Are they the same? If they are not the same, it means that, of course, the abiotic factors and the environment varies. So the variations across environment also affects the morphological appearance as well as the physiological role of a particular organisms in the environment. And we also have microbial ecology. If you are studying the microorganisms in a particular environment, how they interact between themselves and the environment, then you are studying microbial ecology. So there are also some other important branches of ecology. And these other branches of ecologies include habitat ecology. So ecology is based on nature of habitats. What is habitat? Habitat is a surrounding where living organisms survive. It's a place where living organisms exist. It's a surrounding where living organisms are found. And it includes freshwater ecology, marine ecology, desert ecology, forest ecology, and grassland ecology. So if you look at all these sub-branches of habitat ecology, they are all based on the environment. Fresh water is an environment. Marine is also a watery environment. Desert, forests, grassland. So all these, they are sub-branches of habitat ecology. So habitat ecology is one of the branch of ecology that study the nature the nature of the environment. And then the next one is conservational ecology. So conservational ecology, it deals with preservation and the management of our natural resources. Like for example, if you have a particular environment, let me just give this example. There is a lot of deforestation that is cutting down of trees, rampant everywhere. That is deforestation. So a lot of trees are being actually cut down. So when we say conservational ecology is one of the branch of ecology that try to preserve and manage the natural resources. Like for example, if you have a particular forest and there are trees there, so as an ecologist, as a conservational ecology, is your role to make sure that the natural habitat, those natural resources that are found in that particular forest are conserved, are preserved, and are properly managed. That is conservational ecology. And we have production ecology. It deals with energy flow and nutrient cycling within ecosystems. Ecosystem is like a communities of a different living organisms that interact with one another. So first, in production ecology, we are talking about how energy flow from one trophic level to another, maybe starting from plants to we human to other animals. How does it flow from one point to another? So production ecology, it deals with the energy flow. We know that the primary source of energy is sunlight. The primary source of energy is sunlight. So maybe when plants absorb this sunlight and convert the solar energy with some amount of smaller molecules to produce a complex. So generally plant as a producer, they use solar energy, plus small molecules, plus small molecules to produce a complex compound like carbohydrates. So now, first, the energy flow from sun to plant, and of course from plant is we animals like human. So now the question is, in this production ecology, we are talking about how this energy flow from sun, plant to human, maybe from human to, let's say, lion. So this flow of energy from one stage to another. So the flow of energy from one stage to another is what we call energy flow. And each of the states to the next state is called a trophic level. So you can now say primary trophic level. This is the first trophic level from sun, then to plant is the second trophic level, and then from plant to human is the third trophic level. So that is production ecology. It deals with the energy flow and nutrient cycling within ecosystem. Of course, we have nutrient cycling, and this example of nutrient cycling in production ecology includes water cycle, carbon cycle, phosphorus cycle, nitrogen cycle, and many more. So that is production ecology. It deals with energy flow and nutrient cycling within ecosystems. And then the next thing is paleoecology. So this branch concerned with ancient organism or organism of past and their environment. So in paleoecology, we are talking about some of those organisms like dinosaurs. So we are talking about the past organisms and their environment. Dinosaurs, they are called extinct organisms. They are extinct organisms. They are organisms that survive around 360 million years ago. So they survive so many million years ago. So studying those kinds of organisms and their environment is what you call paleoecology. Paleoecology, that is the study of ancient organisms or the organisms of past. So the organisms of past they are called extinct. They are called extinct organisms. So that is paleoecology. And then the next thing also, we have another branches, which is population ecology. So population ecology studies the structure and the dynamics of population. So in population ecology, first you study the structure of the population and their dynamics. That is how they change. After you look at their structure, maybe 20 years ago, like human being, you cannot compare the population of human. You cannot say that the population of human of around 100,000 years ago to be exactly the same with the current human population. So studying the structure and the dynamics of population, that is how the population are changing with time, with their environment, is what we call population ecology. So the group of organisms of a species occupying a particular area at a particular time, that is what you call population. So population, they are a group of organisms of a species occupying a particular area at a particular time. So that is what you call population. And then the next thing after population ecology is ecosystem ecology. So the ecosystem ecology, it deals with the analysis of ecosystem structure and function. And what is ecosystem? Ecosystem is the study of all the population, all population. Like ecosystem is the summation of population, a particular environment, and their interaction with that particular environment. Because within one particular environment, you can have different populations. So the combination of those populations, you can have a population of human, you can have a population of dogs, you can have a population of goats, you can have a population of monkeys. So when you add or you sum all these population is what you call ecosystem. So in the ecosystem ecology, you are dealing with the analysis of the ecosystem structure and the function. And then the next thing is radiation ecology. So radiation ecology is concerned with the effect of radioactive materials on both living system as well as on pathway through which they are dispersed, including dispersal through abiotic environments. So we have what we call radioactive materials. When we say that radioactive materials are those substances that spontaneously disintegrate. They emit radiations. And those radiations, so many of them have negative effects. They affect living organisms. So if you are studying the radioactive materials in the environment and their interactions of that radioactive materials with the living organisms, is what you call radiation ecology. And then we have chemical ecology. Chemical ecology examines the role of chemical interaction between living organisms and their environment. Like for example, let's say now you have a lead as an element, lead element. You now put that lead, or maybe insecticide, you put insecticide inside a water, inside water where there are living organisms surviving. So to study the effects of those insecticides on the organisms in water is what you call chemical ecology. Or maybe, for example, you just spray insecticide everywhere from in your house, in your home. So if you are studying the effects of those chemicals or the role of those chemicals on the people that are living in that particular home, you are studying chemical ecology. And then the next one is human ecology. So human ecology studies the relationship between human and the environment. And then there is gene ecology. What is a gene? A gene is a segment of DNA. A gene is a segment of DNA. Generally, in human, we have what we call cell. And in a cell, in human, we have what you call cell. We have cell like this. And in a cell, we have nucleus. And in the nucleus, we have chromosome. We have chromosome. And in these chromosomes, we have DNA. And the DNA is double-stranded that make up of thousands of genes. So in a cell, we have nucleus, and in the nucleus, we have chromosome, and in the chromosomes, we have DNA, and in the DNA, we have thousands of genes. Thousands of genes. And each of these genes is responsible for producing a particular protein. It's responsible for producing a particular protein. So in gene ecology, you are studying the genetic makeup of a species or population to their environment. It means now, let's say human. So if we are talking about human, in human, we have our genes. So if you are studying the genetic makeup, that is the total number of genes in human and the relationship of those genes with the environment is what you call population ecology. Sorry, is what you call gene ecology. Like for example, some genes are highly expressed in particular environment while some other genes are not expressed in particular environment. Like for example, assuming now you are surviving where there is where the weather is very hot. So it means that there is a stress. So in that environment, since there is a lot of stress, there is likelihood that there will be a highly expression of stress genes. Stress genes. So if you are studying the relationship between those stress genes and the environment is what you call gene ecology, because stress genes produce proteins that will allow you to adapt to the stress situation. And that is gene ecology. And then the next thing is there are two types of ecology, which is Autecology and synecology. So Autecology is the study of individual organisms or individual species in relation to the environment. So if we are studying only one person or one organism and the relationship of that person with the environment is what you call Autecology. So individual organism, or it may be individual species. So if you said individual species, it can be human species. It can be monkey species. So that is Autecology. It means it is talking about individual. It means individual. And then the next one is synecology. So synecology is the study of group of organisms associated in a community in the same environment. So it means that in the case of synecology, we are talking about a group of organisms, not individual organisms, and how that organisms associated to form a community in the same environment in relation to various other species living in the same environment. So that is what you call synecology. So you are talking about a group of organisms. So synecology, in other words, is called biosociology or biosynecology. So it means that in synecology or biosociology, it means how a group of organisms or how one species of organisms interact with another species, that is associates with another species, to form a community in the environment. That is biosynecology or biosociology. So sociology is from social sciences, how one interacts with another one in the particular environment. So, but in this case, we are talking about the group of organisms. Group of organisms. So now the next thing is, of course, as I said, in the environment, we have biotic factors and we have abiotic factors. So under abiotic factors, we have atmosphere, we have hydrosphere, we have lithosphere, and we have biosphere. So what is atmosphere? Atmosphere is the part of the earth occupied by air, space, and hydro means water, is the part of the earth that occupied by water, like ocean and other ocean, marine is hydrosphere. The lithosphere, part of the earth occupied by land, and then biosphere, it means the part of the earth that occupied by living organisms. So bio means life, that is living organisms. Sphere means space. Litho means land. So a space occupied by land. So biosphere is the part of the earth that occupied by living organisms, meaning life. And then lithos means land. And hydros means water. And of course, atmosphere means space, air. And then, so that is for the abiotic factors. So abiotic factors, we have atmosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere, and biosphere. And then the next thing is producer, which is under biotic factors. We have producer, we have consumers, and we have decomposers. So what is producers? Producers are generally, in many cases, they are plants that convert solar energy. As I mentioned, they convert solar energy plus small molecules to produce a complex molecules, like carbohydrates, complex molecules like starch. So that is what you call that is producers. So, and generally producers are organisms that can manufacture their own foods. So they synthesize their own food through this process. They use solar energy and small molecules in the environment, and they convert them into complex molecules like starch. So this is what we call producers. So generally they produce their own food, they synthesize their own food on their own. But consumers, they are also organisms that they cannot synthesize their own food. Rather, they directly or indirectly depend on producers. And then we have decomposers. What are decomposers? Decomposers are those organisms that cannot synthesize their own food. Rather, they feed on dead, decay animals or plants. They feed on dead, decay of plant and animals, and that is what you call decomposers. So that is for the biotic factors and the abiotic factors. So I think we have discussed about these biotic and abiotic factors. So And of course, this is the producers. As I said, producers, they are organisms that can actually utilize solar energy or sun energy and simple inorganic substances to produce complex food materials. And then consumers, they are called heterotrophic. They cannot synthesize their own food, rather they depend either directly or indirectly on producers. And then these are the decomposers. They feed on dates, decay of plant and animals. Examples of this decomposer, we have bacteria, we have fungi. So they are the organisms that generally feed on dead decay or on dead organisms, which can be plant or animals. And then the next thing is parasites. What are parasites? Parasites are organisms that actually cause harm. They cause harm on organisms. So we have predators also. What are the predators? Predators are species that kill and eat their prey and have no long-term interaction with them. So that is predators. So predators, they are those class of organisms like lion. Like lion is a predator. They kill and they eat on their prey. And then we have parasites. The parasite species are species that live on or in their host over a long period of time and harm, but are unlikely to directly kill the host. So examples of this parasite, it means that there are those organisms that can live on or their host. When we said host, it means that there are organisms that are affected. And typical example of parasite is like mosquito. Mosquito. You can have, mosquito is a vector. Like, let me just give this example of, let's say, Plasmodium falciparum. Plasmodium falciparum is an example of parasite and is the parasite that causes malaria. It's a parasite that causes malaria. So it lives inside their host. So the host is the organism that they affect, while the parasite are the one that are affecting the organisms. So they can either live on or in their host. So that is why the parasite are classified into into three. We have endoparasites. We have what you call endoparasite. We have endoparasites. When we said endoparasite, it means those parasites that live inside the host. And then we have what you call ectoparasites. Ectoparasites are those parasites that live on the host. And then we also have facultative parasites. We have facultative parasites. We have facultative parasite. So when you say facultative parasite, it means they are the parasites that can live both inside or outside. So that is in the case of parasite. And then we have what you call parasitoids. So parasitoids are the species whose eggs are laid on the host. They are the parasites that they laid their eggs on the parasites. And typically on the larval stage of the insect host, like for example, and which then develop in or on the host, harming it as the parasite do, but that eventually grow large and kill the host. So parasitoids is an example of the parasite that usually lay their egg on the host, and they grow together with them, and also they harm them, and they may even eventually kill them. And we have also brood parasites. So brood parasites are those parasites species that lay their eggs in the nests of their hosts. And then we also have, there is a competition usually between organisms sometimes. So when we say competitions, it means that living organisms are competing with one another due to limited resources. So whenever we set a competition, there must be a limited resources. So these limited resources can be foods, can be environment, can be lights, So we have interspecific competitors of an organism. That is, other species that use the same resources and deplete supplies of those resources so that they negatively impact an organism. So there are those species of organism that use the same species that use the same resources, but at the same time they deplete the supply of those resources so that at least they negatively impact other organisms that need the same resources. So they use the resources and then they now cause the depletion of the resources so that other organisms will not benefit from it. And then we have also mutualists, species whose presence is helpful or essential to the organisms and who are helped by the organism. So members of the same species. So mutualist is like mutualisms. When you have two species of organisms and they help one another, is what you call mutualism. Then the next one is intraspecific competition. So intraspecific competition is the use of same resources. So members of the same species affect each other negatively. That is behavioral interaction. So this is actually the level of organization of the universe. First, you start from atoms, and then atoms will produce molecules. Then from the molecules, you have protoplasms, which is the organelles of the cells. Then from the organelles of the cells, you have the cell itself, you have tissues, you have organs, you have organisms, and then you have population, communities, ecosystem, biomes, biosphere, Earth, solar system, galaxies, and then you have universe. So this is how the Earth exists, how the universe exists. It started from atoms. So even the Earth itself, you can go and check what you call a Big Bang theory. According to Big Bang theory, the Earth itself the Earth is created, or the universe is created from protons, neutrons, and electrons. And it took, according to evolution, it took about 15 billion years for the protons, neutrons, and the atoms to be used to completely construct the universe. So it's take 15 billion years ago. And it follows this pattern, starting from atoms to galaxies, and then the universe. So organisms, population, communities, ecosystem, biomes, and biospheres is what constitutes ecology. So what is ecological niche? Ecological niche. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we are going to stop here. Then next time we are going to continue from here.